Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have the latest from the live radar, run for the latest UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days as it is continuing to look pretty fine and dry over the coming days. Very cold nights with temperatures well below freezing, especially in the south, but by day temperatures getting up into the double digits, so quite a high diurnal range over the coming days, perhaps as high as 15-degree range over the next few days. That is the difference between the top temperature in the middle of the day and the coldest temperature at the middle of the night. As we progress towards the latter parts of this week into the weekend, we will lose those frosty evenings, and that is because we start to see some proper milder air moving in. However, this is caused by a squeeze in those isobars with lower pressure trying to come in off the Atlantic. So yes, it could turn milder, perhaps even warmer in places, but we would see an increased risk of precipitation. So yes, losing those frosty nights, but we would instead replace those frosty nights with perhaps bits and bobs of rain, especially in the west. Of course, with more warmer air involved, it could be heavy and maybe thundery. So that's something to keep in mind for later this week, but temperatures could get up as high as 16 or even 17 degrees. However, into the longer range, we continue to see a fairly strong signal for high pressure to move towards Iceland, Greenland and Scandinavia, somewhere in that sector, and try to push back in cold air as we head towards the middle of the month. Now, there are no very cold runs appearing, no runs getting the -10 isotherm, no real big polar plunges, but generally below average temperatures, potentially again very cold nights and even cold days if that wind was coming in from the north or east. There's a fairly strong signal for that. Not 100% run showing it, but a fairly strong signal for that to be occurring towards the middle of the month. So although fairly spring-like conditions in the next few days, we could revert back to something more in line with winter as we do head into next week. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see at the moment it is a dry evening, recording this around 7 p.m, not too much going on, a bit of cloud and a bit of drizzle in the north, but for most it's clear skies. It's been a very sunny day and a little bit milder today, 11 or 12 in a few spots, but temperatures tonight dropping away rapidly. Already in the far south, where we've got the clear skies, temperatures are already getting close to those low single digits, perhaps even getting close to freezing in a few spots, and those temperatures will rapidly drop over the next few hours. As I said, a massive diurnal range. So if you look at this chart in about 2 or 3 hours time, around it was 10, 11 p.m, maybe even midnight, temperatures would be widely down towards those low single digits or below freezing. So seeing really quick changes in those temperatures. For most, it's probably really quite abundant in the morning, where you wake up, it's white outside with pretty harsh frost, and then by around 9, 10 a.m, most of it's melted and temperatures are around the mid to high single digits. So yeah, it's that time of year where we are seeing those really big swings, and that's going to continue over the coming days. Now, if you move over to the latest UKV now, you can see it is pretty dry over the next few days. Not too much going on. Bits and bobs of rain trying to move into the far north and west of Scotland. Some heavier rain along this weather front, but it does disintegrate away as it moves inland and eventually is pushed to the north. That rain continues, though, in places in the far north and west through Wednesday and into Thursday. Again, cloud, bits and bobs of rain across the north and the west, but look further southwards, stunning sunshine, and again, temperatures will be slowly creeping up. As we head towards Thursday and Friday, still looking really quite stunning, but we start to see that wind direction shift to more of a south or southwesterly, and that means milder air, but also some heavier showers pushing in and potentially areas of longer spells of rain, and maybe even a few thundery showers mixing in within this, especially across the western half of the British Isles. So yes, turning much milder towards Thursday, Friday, and into Saturday, but you can see increased cloud and increased rain. So we would lose that wall-to-wall sunshine, and we would lose those overnight frosts. We would replace them with even warm temperatures, but an increase in cloud and rain. So although, yes, we are seeing those positives of warmer conditions, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. We are going to be seeing perhaps some more thick cloud and longer spells of rain. If you look at the upper air temperature, you can see it isn't particularly cold at the moment, but with fairly stagnant air it is still very cold at the surface, especially overnight. But that air gets more mobile in the next few days, and we start to see some proper milder air shifting in from the southwest up towards the mid to high single digits, maybe even touching 7 or 8 degrees at times through later this week. And it does turn properly mild with that southerly push. So not massive changes at the upper air level, but because that wind direction shifts, it does start to bring some actual low level warmth, some actual warmth at the surface, which eliminates the frosts and gives those milder days. Now, if you look through this evening, you see temperatures widely below freezing once again in the far south and especially the east. Again, could vary a little bit from this, all dependent on the cloud. Further northwards, with the remnants of the weather fronts and a bit of bobs of rain, we do see more in the way of temperatures in the mid single digits. Into Tuesday afternoon, look at that, temperatures 10 to 12 degrees, a fairly pleasant day, but nothing too amazing. Into Wednesday, frost once again in the far south, not quite as widespread, and you can see into Wednesday afternoon temperatures rising slightly higher, 12 to 14. And then look at Thursday, nowhere near as much of a widespread frost. Temperature still chilly, still 2 to 6 degrees, but a little bit better. And look at this, Thursday afternoon, 16 or 17 degrees, and you see similar conditions into Friday. Temperatures up towards 13, 14, maybe not quite as high with a bit more rain around. And once again into Saturday, temperatures are even higher than Friday, 15, 16. So slight dip there through Friday, but generally speaking, much milder towards those mid to maybe even high teens as we head to the latter part of this week. But as I said, if we have a look at the longer range now, not looking like that is going to continue into the middle of the month. And that's because we're going to see some high pressure to our north and colder conditions potentially starting to develop. See this southerly push as we head towards the latter part of this week. But low pressure gets involved, so we would likely see a bit more in the way of rain, especially in the south and the west here, with a bit of a cut-off low developing towards the Bay of Biscay. And eventually, high pressure replaces the lower pressure towards Iceland, and we start to see a bit of an easterly flow. Now, initially, the isobars aren't particularly packed together. They're not particularly tight. That means the wind isn't going to be that strong. So we're not going to see a very quick transition to cold conditions, but it could be quite slow, and we could be slowly seeing those temperatures drifting down. As we progress beyond that, the isobars could get a bit tighter for a time, but just generally with that block hanging around, it's just going to keep it fairly stagnant and fairly cold. Now, the GFS here isn't a massively cold run. It's not a massively mild run. It's kind of in the middle. It's, around what the majority are showing, or kind of the mean of the majority. And if we do zoom in to the surface temperatures, you can see it's not mild. It's not very cold, it's just chilly. Temperatures by day, mid to high single digits at best, and overnight dropping down towards low single digits depending on cloud. And of course, these temperatures don't look terrible, especially considering what we were seeing a few weeks ago or back in January. But for mid-March, potentially even drifting into late March, it is fairly disappointing, fairly chilly, and below average. Remember, as we get into April, get into May, we're going to start to see temperatures, or hoping to see temperatures, into the 20s, 25 degrees, perhaps in April, maybe even getting up towards the high 20s come May, or even not 30 degrees sometimes we see in May. So we're not too far off that, but GFS hanging around with those colder conditions into the second half of the month. Now, the GEM has been one that's been very on board with this pattern over the past few days. And you can see generally, again, that high pressure replaces low pressure to our north, and it's a much stronger northeasterly wind here come early next week, and that means we drag in that colder air quite a lot faster. Now, the issue here is there's not that much cold air to our northeast, so we don't go very cold, but we go much colder than the GFS, and the upper air temperatures are widely below that -5 level. And you can see here, by day, look at that, 2 to 6 degrees, really chilly, and overnight, just about getting down to freezing. So yeah, feeling really quite cold. This is kind of average January temperatures, not what we'd be expecting into the middle of March. So yeah, really quite chilly here from the GM, continuing that trend. Now, finally, if we look at the latest eastern earth, this has just come out. Again, you can see the high pressure in control. Eventually, the southerly winds push in later this week, and they get replaced with high pressure to our north. And the high pressure to our north is quite a lot bigger than the other runs were showing. And again, it's showing a fairly strong easterly wind. There's a bit of a battle here with the Atlantic, and there is the risk of even a bit of snow along this leading edge. You can see here, we're battling between mild air and cold airs. That is a possibility, but at this stage we would just remain cold with those northeasterly winds streaming in. Unfortunately, the temperatures haven't loaded yet, but they probably be, again, similar to what the GEM was showing. Now, after you finish by looking at the latest GFS ensembles, you can see it is mild and dry for the next few days, remaining mild into the weekend and warm, especially at the surface, but increased precipitation. Because you see how the wind direction has a big impact on those surface temperatures, even though the upper air temperature is not changing too much. The surface, quite big shifts. And then into the longer range, back towards average, with a big split appearing there into the middle portion of March. Quite a few going very cold, others less so. And yeah, it's one we'll have to wait and see and keep a very close eye on this big uncertainty. I think GFS is a little bit more pessimistic today, but regardless, still plenty of runs going for that colder solution. And you see that on the 2 meter temperatures, mild over the coming days, and then that dip into the middle of the month. And again, a lot of uncertainty whether it's going to be 6 or 7 degrees or 12 or 13. Anywhere between that is very possible. And finally, if we look at the latest ECMWF, unfortunately the midday run hasn't fully come out yet. So look at the midnight run, very similar, but a bit more of a stark drop off there in the longer term. Still plenty of average or slightly above average runs, but as I said, the majority are below average, and some are very cold, like the ECMWF operational run there, down to -6, -7, getting close to around 6, 7, 8 degrees below average for the time of year. So really quite chilly, and increased precipitation as well. And that all equates to pretty cold surface temperatures. You can see a big pickup over the coming days, and then it dipping once again into the middle portion of the month. Again, it doesn't look that terrible. 6, 7 degrees by day, 8 degrees by day isn't that terrible compared to what we've seen over the past couple of months. But I will emphasise, for mid-March, it isn't great. It's not the worst we've ever seen. We've seen temperatures cold in this. We've seen temperatures low single digits by day in March. We've had bitterly cold easterlies, for example. But when it comes to just generally cold conditions, this is pretty poor. And yeah, off the back of 17, 18 degrees later this week, it could come as a bit of a sudden shock. As I know, a lot of people have been talking about how beautiful it is out at the moment, how sunny and how warm it is in the sunshine. We might lose that come next week and suddenly think, where has spring gone? So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.